elderly, well, I know what you mean by saying elderly. I wouldn't classify her as elderly, but yeah, she's definitely a woman of a certain age. Yeah, they are invisible. I was just watching, hey Nicole, I was just watching the CNN interview clip, and it's interesting. I posted it in group. It's in one of the comments. It's not like its own post, but it's interesting because the correspondent, I can't remember who's interviewing her, is saying, this is, your allegations go a step further than any of the 15 or 16 women that had previously come forward in the past few years, insofar as you're literally saying or describing rape where they were describing sexual assault. And again, I don't know the strict hard and fast legal differences there, but what's interesting is that E. Jean Carroll, like in this interview on CNN, is like, she says, I'll play it back, she's like, I'm reluctant to use the word rape. She keeps saying, like, it felt like a fight, but I don't feel like a victim, and I don't feel like so many other women who have dealt with actual assault or actual rape. So it's interesting, she's very reluctant to like use the word rape. Let me see if I can just play that back. Heidi is saying, I'm not excusing it, I'm just saying that it's part of something that's deeply wrong with American culture plus misogyny. Yeah, I mean, women of a certain age are obviously deeply made to feel invisible.
In the infamous Access Hollywood tape.
No, that's not what
sort
we
of
want.
Foreshadowed this, or
I just want to get to the part where she kind of says that she's uncomfortable using the word rape. Let me see if I can get there. I think
It knocked me back.
this she's talking about when she's in the
I
dressing room.
felt relief, and that's right. That's right.
you felt relief that was confirmation, basically, you felt. So as you know, since you came forward, the president has denied all of this. Let me read to you his statement. He says on Friday, I've never met this person in my life. She's trying to sell a new book. That should indicate her motivation. It should be sold in the fiction section. No pictures, no surveillance, no video, no reports, no sales attendants around. I would like to thank Bergdorf Goodman for confirming they have no video footage of any such incident because it never happened. Your response?
Well, what is the title of this book? What do we need men for? Does it say Donald Trump attacked me? I never mentioned Donald Trump
I do.
in the
This is
description of the
interesting.
book. On Amazon, you don't see it. It was not about Donald Trump. By the way, male authors never get this question.
About are you just trying to sell books?
Yes,
but I mean, but beyond the book selling part, he denies that it happened. He just denies. He also denies that he met you, though there is a picture of you two having met. I think that what he has said is that was just in passing at a party. But here's the picture of you two. That was your ex-husband.
Yeah, so
and
they show them,
there's
like,
photographic evidence
they
of you having met Donald Trump.
Right.
But he is denying that.
That is his, with all the 15 women or 16 who've come for.
I don't think I caught the right part. Anyways, yeah, so it's interesting though that okay. I think it's a reasonable thing for any journalist, even though it's coming from the president. Like, I don't take any stock of what he says, but I think it would be, it is a valid comment to point to, bring to the fore that she is on a book tour and she is obviously promoting.
Who would? But I'm saying legally it was rape. It's unambiguous.
Oh, here it is. At the same time that she is claiming that this happened to her. So, I mean,
Very brief episode.
Here we go.
Very brief. I am not faced with sexual violence every single day like many women around the world. And so, yes, I'm very careful with that word.
I understand.
I like you will use it.
Well, here's the situation. I understand that you don't want this to define you, of course, who would, but I'm saying legally it was rape. It's unambiguous. What you describe in the book, it was rape. And that actually goes further than the 15 women who came forward during the campaign.
Yeah, so she just puts her eye, her face goes down and she won't even acknowledge, she's just basically, like, eyeballing the correspondent and saying, you know, like, these are your words, not mine. Like, she doesn't even want to say the word rape. I mean, it is, you know, obviously curious timing that she's promoting a book and all of that for the stuff for her to choose to come out now. I get all of that. Yes, Sindel. I can see how that would be suspect, but, yeah, I don't know. I haven't watched the MSNBC interview, but it just feels kind of like, I mean, what is she, in her late 60s, early 70s? She's already, like, she's accomplished in her own right. Like, she doesn't need this publicity. Sindel concurs. I don't know. I think it's interesting that, Sindel has very vocal opinions. I just think it's interesting that, the timing of it, and that she is choosing, I don't know, like, this just, like, makes me have all of the Leaving Neverland feels, like, all of the Michael Jackson feels, because obviously, like, women's group, rah-rah, Melissa feminism, like, believe women, but, like, I didn't believe Wade Robson. I kind of still don't. There's definitely, like, bias there because I'm such a Michael Jackson fan and I don't want to believe it, but there's also bias there because the victims are men and it's, like, much easier to dismiss or question them than it is the women that come forward on issues like this. But I did read the thread of when I first posted the New Yorker article when her allegations were published, that, like, yeah, people were, like, suspect, and the people that were suspect were also Trump supporters, so obviously they would be suspect, but I'm getting Leaving Neverland feels because there is something that feels suspect about her timing. So yeah, I don't know. That doesn't mean I don't believe her, that doesn't mean I don't give her the benefit of the doubt, it just means that, like, this shit is getting so out of hand that, it's getting really impossible to, like, draw lines in the sand, and, like, I know, it's like Cosby all over again. She said it's like Cosby all over again. It's just really hard to, like, flesh out, like, who's an opportunist and who isn't, and, like, who is taking it, and I'm not saying that I feel this way about Miss Cummings, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it's making me question all of these things again, like, and how unfair it is that we have to, like, question this shit again every other time we blink an eye. It's just like, okay, who am I loyal to? Why am I loyal to them? Who gets the benefit of the doubt? Who doesn't? Why aren't they getting the benefit of the doubt? Why am I having to deal with this when I have to work and I have to go to school and run a YouTube channel, you guys? You know, it's just, like, it's just so exhausting. Nicole said, I just don't see any reason someone would come forward to take on all of the abuse for kicks and giggles or even promotion. I agree. I absolutely agree. And I agree, but ... I agree, but then I have to check myself with Leaving Neverland. I don't know if you guys have watched Leaving Neverland and that whole freaking charade of a documentary and just the whole thing. It just really, I think it's worth, whether you care about the Michael Jackson allegations or not, I think watching that movie and just following that story is worth its weight in gold, because it's like, when the turntables, it really makes me question it. So yes, Nicole, like, why would anyone come forward and, like, take the abuse for, like, kicks and giggles and go through all of this? But yes, but also, like, there is a payday, there is no such thing as bad publicity. There is such a thing as opportunists. I imagine if you lined up every person in the world that's ever cried rape, if we take that 100%, at least 1% of those people are crying wolf or are opportunists. And because this stuff is coming up like more and more and more and often, it's just getting harder and harder to discern like who. It's just getting exhausting. But the Leaving Neverland documentary and the Leaving Neverland situation is just a really good exercise in like critical thinking and like checking your bias, because it was so easy, and it's still very easy for me to be super suspect of Wade Robson, and to not take him seriously, and to have like all of these reasons why like he's the opportunist. But I know that if it were reversed and it were women that were coming forward against Michael Jackson, they would have the benefit of the doubt like that. And it's like, well, why is that? So yeah, I mean, Heidi, I agree. She is very credible. Heidi is saying sorry, I'm trying to go back and read the comments here. And Nicole saying, in terms of it being around her book release, I find that a moot point, because when would be a good time? Absolutely right. Before publishing a book, after publishing a book, there is no good time. Is that her responsibility to choose a good time? No, it's not, and you're absolutely right. But I think from a journalist perspective, I think it's a fair question to ask, even though it's kind of a tired question to ask, and probably wouldn't get asked of a man on a book tour, but it just does, it does make me, like, cringe a little bit. Just the timing of it makes me cringe, that's all. Like, I can't, there is no good time. It's not her responsibility to pick a good time, absolutely. Absolutely. Sorry, I'm gonna turn my volume down. I have my other laptop here so I can read comments. Hi, Asima. It's so nice to see you. How are you? We do need to honor older women, and I think this and I think the Cosby case, because so many of the women that had come forward were also of a certain age, because so much time had passed, that we're starting to hopefully have like that larger conversation. But yeah, no, it's just I think it's just unfair that anybody, but specifically like women, have to like process all of this. Like it happens. We like run through the facts, hopefully, make an informed opinion, think critically, process it, go to bed, wake up, do what we need to do to go like survive, raise our kids, raise our cats, whatever, and then we blink, and then it's the same shit happening again and again and again, and it's just very unfair, and it's exhausting. And I think that's what I'm trying to articulate, and I'm doing a really hard, like a really bad job of. It's just like the exhaustion surrounding it, and I don't know. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the comments. Heidi was saying the abortion ban shows us how expendable women are. Imagine how much more so elderly women are. Absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. It is terrifying to watch it unfold. And Heidi said earlier, sorry I missed this comment, as soon as she said the words Bergdorf Goodman, it was over. How many people know what that is? I think that's also like an interesting and really valid point to bring up, is because the people that were hanging around in Trump's circle before he became president obviously were of a certain class, and whether or not you hang out in Trump's circle or ever did, like, there's class issues going on here as well. I mean, how many people have heard of Bergdorf Goodman? I mean, I personally have, but I would think the majority of America either hasn't, or if they have, they've never had the ability to step foot into one. So yeah, I think there is maybe it's interesting, because you have like this ability to detach from her, from empathizing with her because of maybe her class. And correct me if I'm wrong, Heidi, if this is where you were going with this thought, but maybe there's like an easy out in terms of like being able to not empathize with her because she's of a certain class or whatever that you just can't relate to. But at the same time, I find that like the people that are sympathizing with Trump or having Trump's back are generally people of like middle to lower middle class to straight up lower class, who definitely probably have never stepped into a Bergdorf Goodman, let alone heard of it, yet they're supporting somebody who that is his entire world. So there's definitely some cognitive dissonance going on around the class issues here, if that's at all where your head was at when you commented on that. I don't know. It's all right, Nicole, thank you for hopping on. We'll be there Thursday for PS Flavors. We're going to do the watch party, and love you big to the sky. Give Eva and everybody else a kiss. Love you. Yeah, I think, Heidi, do you watch Handmaid's Tale, or have you read Handmaid's Tale? Nicole, Heidi's a fan. I want to watch her MSNBC interview and see if she also has a hard time like saying the word rape, which I find like to be interesting in and of itself. Like, I've had an encounter that would be definitely categorized as assault, but I even have a hard time calling it that because I don't feel like what happened to me was as bad as like what happens to a lot of people. So I feel like naming it that or claiming that word or whatever is inaccurate. So there's I definitely can relate to her not wanting to use that word or like take the impact of that word or away from somebody that's had like a worse experience than you. So that I get. I don't know. But Heidi, I'm interested, like, if you watch The Handmaid's Tale, because that was one of the things I wanted to talk about after this, because it's a good segue. Oh, I see your comment now. I can't take it. It's too close to home. Okay, but you're familiar with it. Trump is the price the right wing is willing to pay to get their agenda through federally and in the states. I couldn't agree with that more. Yeah, he's definitely, he's that. People are willing to engage in cognitive dissonance if it means that the bigger, if the ends justify the means. So I agree with that. I was asking about Handmaids because it's interesting that you say it hits too close to home because yes, and that's the entire point of the book and the show is that it's meant to be triggering. It's meant to be triggering that to people that have had horrible experiences happen to them, and it's meant to be triggering to people that haven't. And I think that's the important part of the book and the show is that it's designed to force people to look at the shit that they otherwise wouldn't look at. And it's funny that you say that because one of my friends, Shmini Jordan in group, had a similar experience where I was like, you gotta watch the show, you gotta give it a try. And she was like a couple episodes in, and she's like, I can't do it, it's too much. And then, a couple months went by, maybe even like the rest of the season went by, and then she revisited it, I think sometime before the second season started, and she was, gave it a second chance, and she was just like, now, she's the one hosting the watch party, so, the turntables yet again. But I think that's the point, like, it's meant to trigger, and I understand that it is kind of going to be impossible for certain people to engage with that material. But I say all of that to say that I don't know if anybody who's read the book or who has watched the show has heard, they announced this in late 2018, but Margaret Atwood has written the sequel to the book 20 some odd years later. It's called The Testament, and it's going to come out in September, and she's going to do a live read the night that the book gets published, and then do like a live Q&A, which is going to be amazing. So it'll be interesting to see how the show and that sequel as source material kind of line up or don't line up, because season 1 was the entirety of the book, almost to the letter. It's one of the greatest screen adaptations of a book I've ever seen. I mean, literally almost to the letter, word for word, it was the book. But obviously season 2 and season 3 are extrapolations of the narrative, so it'll be interesting to see like how closely they line up with what she has created to, you know, expand the narrative on her own, and also just to see like what she creates in 2019, or well, she's probably creating it like, you know, in 2017 and or earlier, but like what story like she comes up with like now. I mean, now that this shit we're living this shit, you know what I mean? But I do have some issues with season 3. Like, I know Schmitty's gonna give me a hard time for this, but like, I feel like season 3 is starting to run in place a little bit, and it's making me nervous. Still, obviously, one of the greatest shows on television. I'm not gonna not watch it, but Heidi, are you watching Big Little Lies, or did you read Big Little Lies? It's on HBO. It's got your Meryl Streep, your Laura Dern, your Reese Witherspoon, your Zoe Kravitz, your Shailene Woodley, your Alexander Skarsgård, and in season 2 you've also got your Meryl Streep. You have to watch it if you haven't. There was a really, really, really good article about season 2 of Big Little Lies, insofar as there's going to be spoilers here. If you haven't read the book or watched season 1, I'm not going to... This is not a spoiler-free zone, okay? Like, sorry. Nicole Kidman's character in the book and in the film, or in the show, Celeste, is a victim of domestic abuse. Spoiler alert. What's interesting about season 2 is we're starting to see that we don't know if it's for sure, but it's pretty much for sure that as she's going to therapy to deal with the loss of her husband, she's self-inflicting bruises on herself. Like, she's self-harming to stay close to the trauma. And it was a really good analogy because the psychologist who was in season 1, she was in Lost, she was in Deadwood, she's an amazing actress. I don't know her name, and forgive me, but we're going to keep talking about her because she's an amazing actress. She was in season 1, and in season 2, I'm so glad that they brought her back, but she basically calls Nicole Kidman out. She's like, bitch, are you bruising yourself? Like, and she uses the greatest analogy of all time about PTSD, where she's talking about, you know, to Celeste, she's like, you know, I treat a lot of vets, you know, and they come home with the PTSDs, and they want to go straight back to the front lines because they can't handle the mundane world of, you know, the mediocrity of the day-to-day. They can't function with their families. Like, they want the action, they want the pink mist, like, they want the shit, because that is now what they've been wired to deal with. And so they miss the war, and that bitch dropped that analogy on Nicole Kidman, like, no pun intended, like a bomb. Like, you miss the war. And I think that's a really great conversation to have, because as anyone who has experienced abuse, verbal, psychologically, emotionally, physical, whatever, by a lover, like, there is an element of that, like, of just missing the chaos of being addicted to the chaos, because she even calls her out on it. She's like, what's your drug? Is Perry, her abuser, who, spoiler alert, is dead, is he your drug? Well, clearly he is. I mean, we knew this. This is 2-year-old news. But the conversation about, like, craving the chaos and not being able to, like, detach from said chaos, and to the point where, like, you're literally hurting yourself to recreate the feeling of this person hurting you. I mean, it's just, like, so brilliantly done, especially for a sequel, and also where, very similar to Handmaids, where we've departed from the source material, because the first season was the entirety of the first book. They're doing such a great job. But the thing that really struck me in the second season, but specifically in episode 3? This is the third episode. Specifically Celeste's wanting so desperately to hold on to, like, the good memories of her ex-husband who was her abuser, and, like, telling the therapist, and I've had this conversation with my friends, with my therapist, with my mother, obviously not to the same extent. I was not, like, physically abused like she was, but, like, why do I have to completely erase this person? Like, why do I have to completely detach from the entirety of my relationship to the memory of this person? Like, why can't I at least hold on to the good? And, like, that whole thing that they're teasing out right now between Celeste and the therapist is so on fucking point and so brilliant. I can't even deal with it. It's just like, who are these writers, and, like, what witchcraft is this? Like, they're naming this so beautifully, like, because the therapist says, because Celeste asks, she's like, why is it so bad that I hold on to the good? Like, it's serving me, it's serving my children, like, why can't I hold on to the good? And the therapist is like, in some cases it is good, but in yours it ain't. But that whole conversation about, like, where is that line of, like, where you can have a little bit of a tether versus where you have to completely, like, cut the cord. Like, I don't even know. Heidi, you're gonna have to tell me, because I don't know. Hi Christine, hi Sunny, hi Julie. Sorry, I just went off on a whole Big Little Lies rant. Is anybody caught up? Do we have, like, anything to, like, help me cope with season 2 and that whole Celeste narrative? Because it's so good, and it's very rarely in a film or, like, television is something, like, so nuanced, named, and articulated, and written and acted so well that it, like, takes your breath away. I don't even understand what's happening. But, you have Meryl Streep in there, and she's, stealing every second that she's on screen, but, I mean, what else is new? But yeah, no, I wanted to talk about Handmaids because obviously, when is it not relevant to what's happening in the news? But season 3 is kind of, like, running in circles for me, because it's like, obviously this season is about the resistance, it's about Serena and June's relationship, but it's also, like, I feel like we're just kind of repeating, like, we're really starting to just, like, run in place. I don't know. It's just me. Whereas Big Little Lies, I think, granted, it's in its second season, season 2 of Handmaids was brilliant. So maybe season 3 of Big Little Lies will be a little bit of a valley. That's fair. Every show, needs a peak and a valley. And we might just be, for me personally, in a little bit of a valley with Handmaids, but man, I tell you what, like, Adam Scott's character, or Adam Scott on Big Little Lies season 2 is just doing, like, he's doing a lot of heavy lifting this season, and I think he's doing a great job. I'd love to see him get an Emmy nomination. We'll see. Heidi was saying, Handmaid's Tale is supposed to be kind of a metaphor, but now it's on the horizon as a reality. Did any of us think that was possible? I mean, personally, I did. personally, when I read the book for the first time when I heard that they were adapting it into a TV show. I never read it in high school. It was one of like the options for like required reading over the summer, but I think I like read Count of Monte Cristo instead, you know, or like Romeo and Juliet. So I never read Handmaids back then, and I don't think I would have just like Count of Monte Cristo or anything you read in high school. I don't think when you read stuff that's that brilliant, I don't think like you can really carry like a internalized process the weight of literature of that magnitude when you're an adolescent. I mean, you can comprehend it obviously, but like, can you really empathize with it if you haven't like been out in the world as an adult? I don't think so. That's a different conversation. But long story long, like I didn't read it until I heard that they were adapting it. So I read the book before season 1 started. Mind blown, lives changed. Like I said, season 1 almost to the letter, an exact adaptation and a brilliant one. But I think that's the point. Like I said earlier, like I think the point is that it's meant to trigger. It's intended to, just as the book was. But yeah, I did, even before reading the book, I absolutely, like just knowing the premise of it and knowing the premise of the show and what was going on in the world, I absolutely 100% believed it was a possibility. And yeah, we are living it. Alabama's living it, Louisiana's living it, Missouri's living it. There are women that have already died because they've lived it. Yeah, I'm one of those people who can't bear to watch bad things happen to animals or children, just can't do it. I get it. I mean, it's definitely like a high trigger narrative, whether you're reading the book or the show. But I'm one of those people who generally just has like a high tolerance / numbness to violence, gore, abuse, just on the screen, obviously. Because I was raised to see these things from an early age and go to the movies with my mom, and I wasn't censored, and so I have a good boundary with those things, and I don't get triggered by what I see in art, at least not in like a negative way. I get triggered in a positive way, in the sense that like I get angry and I want to like do something like this, sit on Facebook and drink wine and rant and bitch about it for an hour. But I totally get it. There are parts of it that are unbearable, but I think for those people that haven't had anything happen to them in their lives along the lines of abuse, sexually, physically, otherwise, to watch it, I think is critical. I think it's absolutely critical to read this stuff, to watch this stuff, because it makes you aware. I mean, you're just going to continue to be complacent and whatever if you're not aware. So yes, it is meant to be all of those things. And I'd be interested to hear from somebody like Christina, especially with your background and the work that you do. If you watch Handmaid's Tale or Big Little Lies, if you read the books, like how do you deal with / articulate to your clients how to deal with trauma when they see it on television or film? Because I think that's a very interesting question, because to me, like I have a tendency to like force these things on people that I know and love. I'm just like, hey, you gotta watch this, you gotta trust me, you gotta watch it, you gotta like fight through the pain and watch it. Sometimes it's a hit and sometimes it's a miss, but I have a tendency to kind of just get like super like overexcited about things that I feel are important and that people like should watch, and it obviously doesn't always land. So, you know, for somebody with the work that you're doing, Christine, like I'd be interested to know how you, if you do at all, like articulate how to deal with, process, internalize, work with, utilize whatever things that are triggering on the silver screen. Because to me, I think that a lot of this stuff is coming to the fore and in pop culture because it's coming to the fore in real life, right? Like life imitates art, art imitates life, and we are living that. So I'm super excited to read the sequel to Handmaids. I'm desperate for it to hurry up and come out. And the only other thing I wanted to talk about is Billions, and I know I'm excited to, baby. I was gonna do like a whole vlog. I might still do a whole vlog on this anyways. So like and subscribe on my YouTube. But does anybody watch the show Billions? It's on Showtime. Season 3 just had its finale 2 weeks ago. It is probably one of the most underrated shows in terms of people who watch it, but it's highly, highly critically acclaimed. The premise is very simple. It's like a district attorney and like a .com bazillionaire who's taking advantage and skirting the law, but he's a good guy, but he's also like a shitbag, but it's, it's just like all of the, like, every line is blurred, everything is great, it's delicious. It's got your Paul Giamatti's and your Damian Lewis's, okay? So if you're not watching Billions, oh my god, especially if you live in the Bay Area and you like work in sales or tech, it's like, it's fucking delicious. Anyways, I'm saying all that to say that because the show doesn't get a lot of like attention, I think, in mainstream media, one of its most important characters is played by Maggie Siff. If anybody watched Sons of Anarchy, she was Jackson's wife and mother of his children. Did they get married, or was she just baby mama? I can't remember. If you haven't watched Sons of Anarchy, well, do yourself a favor and watch Sons of Anarchy, because not only is that one of the greatest shows of the last 10 years, but it's also got one of the most important female-led performances of the decade. I watch Sons of Anarchy. I can't. I can't. Let me just give you some information here. So, you have to watch Sons of Anarchy because of Maggie Siff, because it's a great show, but speaking to my point about it having like one of the most important female leads of all time, you're also dealing with, why can't I, sorry, you guys just have to bear with me, you have to bear with me 1 second. You're dealing with, it's Shakespearean, okay, it's literally Shakespearean, and it's very much about a father, a mother, and a son, and the mother is played by Katie Sagal, who in this show is literally, if I were to have written my mother for television or for film, it would be Katie Sagal playing Jackson, Jax Teller's mom. I can't remember the name of her character's first name in the show. How she didn't win every Emmy every season for like 8 years is beyond me. So anyways, Katie Sagal, blessings, may the Lord open. But Maggie Siff, who plays Jackson Teller's baby mama / possible wife, I don't remember, is in Billions. And it is, not only is it one of the most brilliantly written and executed by Maggie Siff, like brilliantly acted, complicated, accurate depictions of a working, successful, white female of a certain age. It's just brilliant. Like, the show is worth watching just to watch Maggie Siff. And then you have Asia Kate Dillon, who comes in season 2. And Asia Kate Dillon is gender non-conforming. I think she identifies as gender binary. Her character also is gender binary, or gender non-binary. I'm still unclear. I know one is and or and one is either or. Either way, their pronoun is they, them. Some of the best acting of like two, I was almost going to say women, but I hope you get my meaning. Like, you have just two non-men acting their fucking pants off, and their characters are written with such like brilliance and nuance and complication, and they're not, nothing about them is cliche, and I cannot recommend watching Billions and Sons of Anarchy just for Maggie Siff alone. But if you watch my video that I posted in group, because I made it for group, but it's also on my YouTube channel, about helping me process the finale of Game of Thrones for my Game of Thrones bitches, like, where Jaime Lannister and Brienne of Tarth's relationship was this hugely beautiful, complicated, non-cliched dynamic, and then got reduced in like one episode to the most disgusting, ultimate romantic cliche of all time, and just ruined that for all of the fans and for that character, for that very amazing female character. Billions does the exact opposite. Every time it can become a cliche and have the female react to the male, or in romantic dynamics in a typical way, they just don't. They're smart. They understand the importance of a romantic friendship. They understand the importance of like not having two people fuck when that's like the easy, satisfying thing to do for an audience. Watch Billions. Watch Maggie Siff in Sons of Anarchy and Katie Sagal, and watch Billions. And like that's all I have to say about that. I'm gonna continue